To be successful in the PMP exam or life, it's not just about having a good foundation of knowledge. You also gotta avoid the mistakes that kill people, that ruin days, that make you fail the exam. Now, this video walks you through those. I'm gonna walk through every single big mistake that people normally make. Now, I pulled this video from my PMP Accelerator program. All my students over there, they go through it, but you need to see it. If you're in the simulator right now, you need to see this thing. You need to know the problems that people face so that you can avoid them. So enjoy this, go through, identifying yourself. Are you making these mistakes? If you are, stop making them, all right? And then reflect back and go on a more, prudent path. So enough talking, jump in there, identify the mistakes in yourself, and let's get better. I'm gonna teach you the big mistakes that could kill your PMP score, and we're gonna walk through how to improve them today. All right, let's do this thing. Now, let's start with a big, obvious fact. Now, how you approach questions matters. That's why we're talking about these mistakes, because if you approach them with one of these mistakes techniques or mistakes approaches, then you're gonna set yourself for a world of pain, and we do not wanna do that. Now, what you must know is that we gotta know all the good things to do, but a lot of times it's really good to know what not to do, all right? And so we're gonna recognize that in ourselves, what not to do, and we're gonna learn to bob and weave and get around them. And so we gotta understand which of these mistakes do we make, and through this entire process, I want you to do a lot of self-reflection. Am I making these mistakes? Why am I making them? Etc. But right off the bat, there are 5 big mistakes that PMP students make all the time. The way I got these is that I watch and coach and develop students just like you hours and hours and hours every week. And once you start watching them and listening and seeing the way they solve them, these things, boop, popped out in my face, and you're gonna benefit a ton from learning these, all right? So before we get into the 5, you gotta make a deal with me, all right? Once we realize these things, here's how we can improve, because just seeing them is great, but we've got to be able to turn them into gold for ourselves. So here's how we're going to improve. The first thing we're going to do is try to recognize them in ourselves. When we solve questions, we're going to recognize, that's mistake number 2. I'm making it. Goodness me, why? Next thing is, why? Can I reflect on, when am I making this mistake? Why am I making this mistake? What kind of pressures am I putting on myself that is forcing me to make this? Why do I think it's a better way to do it that way? Let me think about that. We want to get to the root cause. And then lastly, we got to make the adjustment. I got to stop doing it. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to catch myself if I start going down this road, and I'm going to make the adjustment and practice and practice and practice. It's like learning a new skill. Any new skill, it's just going to take time. Go in this direction instead of that direction. But we've got to go through that, recognize, reflect, and adjust. Can you do that for me, please? Let's do it. All right, so before we get going, and I share the 5 secrets and we work together to get better, let's solve a problem. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? All right, so as I pull up my phone, all the questions, you get a little over a minute to do it. No pressure, just got a little clocky thing right here. You guys ready? I want you to solve it. Do your best, all right? Do your best, do your best. I'm gonna give you, I don't know how much time, not a full minute, whatever, but do your best, okay? Here we go. All right, so there's the question. I'll shut up, take your time. Let's solve this, starting the clock now. Boom. That's 14 seconds. Let me give you another 15 seconds. Ten seconds. I'll give you an extra little bit. All right, that's a little over 50 seconds. Now you get a little over a minute something, so that's in the neighborhood, right? Now, how do you feel right now? Let's what do we say? recognize, like, first of all, recognize how we feel right now. I threw you into I started talking faster than normal, right? I started throwing you into the thing. I said you only had a little bit of time. I tried to put pressure on you. Did you feel that? Right? So everything's for a reason. Now, I don't care what the answer is right now, but what I wanted you to realize is a lot of you probably made mistake number one. Okay, you probably made mistake number one. We'll talk about what the answer is later, in another video. But mistake number one, I call it rush and stab. All right, now that sounds crazy. Kind of sounds like a Russian stab. Sounds like a boxing thing, like Russian stab. But whatever. I can say stab because I've been stabbed, so don't worry about it. All right, rush and stab. Now, what is rush and stab? And you probably made this mistake when you were going through there in the best attempt to solve the question quickly, because everybody thinks, gotta go fast. What we usually do is we speed read the question. Fast. We speed read the answers. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We go through those really, really fast. And then we frantically, C. It's C. Scott said go fast. C. Because I know I got to get it done in a minute, whatever. And there's another one and another one and another one. Frantically stab at an answer. Okay? And then after we do that, which is speed read the question, speed read the answer, frantically stab at an answer, we get it wrong more often than not. Okay? So while well-intentioned to go quickly, it is our antithesis of what we want to do, okay? We do not want to go fast. We want to slow down. And it sounds so counterintuitive, kind of tortoise in the hair-ish, but what we want to do is slow down and realize that at the beginning, what we're trying to do is build competency in ourselves, how we think about questions, how we understand the material, how we squeeze all the goodness from it, and that by doing that, speed comes in time. And it doesn't take years, like we said, fine wine, right? It takes a little bit of time, but without getting the foundations right and the processes, then we're never gonna get to good, sustainable, practical speed, okay? In the lean world, they call this kata. K-A-T-A. And that means these are the routines that we go through that build muscle memory and process inside of us. So we do not want to go read through. We want to slow down, pull all the goodness out of it, and methodically work through. The clock at the beginning does not matter while we study. All right, so that's mistake number one. What do we call it? Rush and stab. If you see it in yourself, go step one. I see it. I'm doing it. Sweet. All right, and we'll get better. Now, number two. Anybody want to guess? How would you know? It's called robot reading. All right, so I watch a lot of students solve problems, and a lot of them will go from Russian stab to robot reading. So it's an evolution to go, Scott said, slow down. Scott said, slow down reading it, so I'll do that. And what they do is they read the question nice and slowly, but it kind of sounds like a robot. This is the thing that I'm reading in the question, the scenario, etc. But they don't focus on the actual comprehension side of it. They're just reading it. They're like trying to slow their motor down. I don't know if you've noticed, but I drink a lot of coffee and I talk a lot of fast. So I can dig it, all right? I know about slowing down and the importance of it. But what we need to get to is get that second layer where we're like, ooh, we're slowing down and we're getting all the goodness out of it. So we slow down, and people that make this mistake about robot reading, they slow down, but they're not focused on actually seeing the words come off the page to get in la cabeza up here to understand it, all right? And by doing that, at the end of it, they go, what the hell did I just read? It's kind of like when you drive to work or something like that, back when we used to do that, and you got there and you're like, dude, I don't even know how I got here. Like left, right, turn, whatever. You didn't get any accidents, thank God, but you don't even know how you got there. You don't know what the person was looking at. You don't know the sales at Starbucks, if the Starbucks advertised, whatever. You just don't know what happened. So you didn't take time to see the scenery. And they say, And you know what they do when they robot read it and they go, I don't even know what the hell I just did. They got to reread it. They got to reread it over and over. And they might do it slow again. And you know what that takes? It takes time. And you know what we don't have? Time. So we got to get smarter about this. And like I said, we're going to build these techniques. So number 3, let's go to number 3. Hauling around baggage. Now we all got baggage in life, whatever, but we don't want to bring it to the questions. Now, to get this in your brain, think about if you were in normal meetings during your day. And I can imagine some of y'all's days are stacked, meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, right? Now, Meeting 8 a.m. What if you go in there and it's a real winger dinger, like a bad one, right? Something where it's like, oh God, it's just like just not seeing eye to eye, just put you in a bad way to start the day, negativity, someone that's totally against you. I think that happens all the time. Now, the next meeting down the road, what do we want to make sure that we don't do in just regular consulting or regular project management life? We don't want to bring the baggage from meeting 1 to meeting 2, right? Now, Coach Salvador came up with this concept. He says like treat every question like it's a customer, a unique customer or a unique client. You don't want to bring the previous baggage. But what I find is that a lot of students out there will miss a question or have a tough time with a question or get wrapped around the axle on a question. You know what they'll do is they'll get, oh no, and they'll get frustrated. The world's against me. PMI hates me. And then they bring that frustration to the next question. And all that baggage on your shoulders and back, does it help? Heck no. It doesn't help you at all right? And so they bring it from question to question, and it drags through it. And if you think about, got to be nimble, positive. You got to be able to react and move through these questions. If you're just yanking and pulling through all these other baggages, how good are you going to do on question 30, 50, 90, 120, whatever? It's going to be, you're going to have a Mount Vesuvius of problems behind you. And the question that you're going to face next ain't got nothing to do with the ones that you just had. So why are you dragging it along? All right. And so a lot of times when students do this, they end up spinning out of control. They end up spinning out of control. They get stuck on a question. They say, I'm going to lay my hands down here. I'm not going to get stuck. And they end up spending 15, 10 minutes on it. Oh, I did it or I didn't. And then boom, the game's over. So do not spin out of control. Leave the baggage. You have a bad question? It happens. You're like a relief pitcher. Shoot, in baseball. You throw it, boom, they hit a home run. What just happened? Don't really remember. Let's move to the next one. All right. That's number 3. Don't haul around baggage. Number 4. All right. Leaving yourself outside. All right. I see a lot of students do this. This is kind of like robot reading, but a teensy bit different. They start inferring some magical PMI person that says, I am going to read a question and I'm going to say what I think PMI wants to do. So they are sacrificing their soul, their genius, their, thing that's inside of them, their heart, and they're going to take it out, throw it outside, and they're going to bring in this fantasy straw man weird PMI thing and stick it in there and go, oh, I'm just going to say what I think PMI says. That's the better way to do it. Now, this is a terrible way to do it, all right? And so they say what they think PMI wants, all right? And then they ended up going through random word salad. When I ask them about it, they start just spouting off things because they're not at a good foundational level of understanding. They're trying to please a person that literally does not exist. There's not a Mr. or Mrs. PMI, okay? They have created this false narrative in their head, and they're trying to create it. And what they do is they start going back to look, expert judgment, this and all these different tools and techniques and this and flat. Nah. They end up just saying, like I was just saying, like words that are actual words but don't sequence together and don't have a logic behind them. So they have given up what makes them great, their logic, their approach, all those things, and sacrificed it for something when honestly no one's asked them to do it. So they've given up themselves. Bad, all right? They left themselves outside. So don't do that. And they seem to never ask, what would I do? All right? What would I do? Not Scott. What would you do? All right? And so if they bring themselves in, they go, what would I do? And then if they start going through questions and what they do and what the PMI answer says are mismatched, they automatically take the reaction of, oh, this is wrong. Instead of, what do we say? Recognize, reflect, adjust, right? And so what they're doing is fighting the system. And a lot of times the system's not even what they think it is. So don't leave yourself outside, bring yourself inside, because these people that do this never get better. Like, this is a red flag. Where am I down here? No, down here. This is a red flag for me. If I hear students do this, we got to break that real quick and get them on the path, because this is one of the highest red flags that will cause you to fail this exam. So this is no joke around neighborhood right now, okay? All right, and so number 5. They see ghost words. Oh, I see ghost words. All right, so ghosts don't exist, I'm pretty sure, as I've probably brought myself on a ghost attack tonight. but I don't think ghost words exist, definitely, all right? And so what a lot of people do is they infer past stories that are not in the question, and they start like projecting back and creating this fantasy world. Now, I know I'm a dude that wrote a case story around PMI, but they start just going back and back and back and spending all their time working on what might or probably or should have been done in the past. All these things that create context around the question that don't really exist, instead of focusing on what is actually in written words, all right? So they create some fantasy world that doesn't support it. Now, we want you to go deep and think about what's happening, but we don't want you to go and say, create this fantasy world outside. All right, so I see a lot of people do that. And when they do that, they waste a ton of time creating this magical world of all these dominoes that have fallen to get up to this place. And, oh, their boss probably told them this, or they did this, and blah, blah, blah. Nah, read what's on the paper. All right. And at the end of the day, they get it wrong and they get frustrated and they go down, down, down. All right. So that's number 5. So as we go through all 5 of those things, you got to recognize all of them in your mind, all right? Recognize them as you go through here, all right? And then how do we get better? Now, once we've recognized these 5, how do we actually get better? And here's what we need to do. You've already talked about it. We need to recognize it. You've got to see it in there and go, yay, I found it. I found one that I'm making. I'm rushing and jabbing. I don't need to do that anymore. Or I'm seeing ghost words or all these different techniques. What are you seeing yourself doing? Now, when you find them, you've got to reflect, spend the time and actually learn by doing it. Say, dude, ask the coaching people, ask me, ask the other people in your calls. When I answer a question, am I always rushing and jabbing? Am I always doing these things? Am I always saying ghost words, whatever it is? Am I doing that all the time? Am I dragging around baggage from question to question? Is that doing it? And you got to ask yourself in your own mind, why am I doing that? Why does it feel right? Etc. And then from that, we've got to adjust. I'm going to do my best to correct that. And I'm going to test. And I'm going to reflect. And I'm going to go back on these kind of principles. And if we can do that, first of all, we know the top 5. I'll go through them one more time, and then we got to know what to do. We're going to recognize, reflect, and adjust. So one more time, let's go through the 5, and then from that, I want you to go forth, and now we can start talking about the actually good process and how we can go through the positive side of PMP. One more look. Let's look at the 5 big mistakes. Remember, look and reflect on when you are making these. That's step 1 to getting better. Now, number 1 big mistake is to rush and stab. Speed reading and jabbing at an answer. Bad, bad, bad. All right. Number 2, robot reading. Slowing down and reading, but not actually having it get into your brain. Don't make that mistake, but recognize it. And then hauling around your baggage. All that stuff. You don't want to do it. Then leaving yourself outside. We want to bring that genius that you bring to the table into questions. What would you do? And then lastly, don't see ghost words. All right. Don't see things that aren't on the paper. Really dive through. So now we know. Let's keep rolling. See you soon.